They cite Quran verses such as that the Muslims and the Jews, or the Muslims and the disbelievers, are enemies, and that it is a duty and a prophecy and a promise for the Muslims by Allah to eventually defeat and get rid of the Jews. So the entire
Somebody please explain this. What does that mean? If you happen to be an Islamic person, sit tight. Sit tight, because you're about to hear some things that I will say is very problematic, because for many of us, we think this is a political war. I'm here to tell you something. This stuff is religious, man. This is a religious war. This is not political. Politics is a mean to an end, but ultimately this is a religious war. You will see what I mean by that. So let's get to the video. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. Let's get to it. You will see what I mean in a minute. Brace yourself. And let's have the argument. If you happen to be pro-Palestine, if you happen to be a Muslim, well, let's have the argument then.
All around the world right now, people are rallying in support of what they believe is Hamas's attempt to free Palestine. But they're misinformed. Freeing Palestine was never the goal of Hamas, despite what the media might tell you. The media is largely mistaken about what's going on, as well as the Islamic motivations of Hamas. So today, we're going to explain the true history and the real motivations of Hamas in their own words. Today, I'm joined by the Apostate Prophet. So AP, thanks for joining us. Now, a lot of people don't even understand who Hamas is. So let's start there. Who exactly is Hamas?
Hamas is an organization that was formed in the late 1980s as an Islamic jihadist movement. It is known as Islamic Resistance Movement, and in Arabic is then shortened as Hamas. So that's where the name comes from. And their goal has been from the very beginning simply to fight the Israeli state, which they do not recognize as an Israeli state, which they call the Zionist occupation, and to eliminate it and to establish one great Arab Islamic state.
People might not be aware that all of Palestine is not in support of Hamas, and that includes some people on the Gaza Strip as well as the West Bank. So with that being said, how does Hamas differ from the Palestinians on the West Bank?
Well, first off, according to the latest data that we have, in Gaza, so in the Gaza Strip, the majority of people, or at least more than 50%, support Hamas. I believe in the West Bank, the support is lower and is actually less than half. But still,
yeah. Thank you so much, Truth Media, for doing that. Thank you so much, Truth Media. Yeah, appreciate you. I'm gonna make you a chat operator. I'm gonna go on my phone and do that. Okay, if you can help me with the chat and so on, if that's okay with you.
When Hamas does something in the name of the Palestinians, people still come together because they represent the Palestinian people.
I see you. I see you, Mr. E. Sorry, guys, for playing with the video. Good to see you, Mr. E. Mr. E's been with us for almost a year and a half now. All right.
Together because they represent the Palestinian people. They differ from the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, which is ruled by Fatah, a secular organization, in that their own nature is entirely about Islam. And in their charter, they make it abundantly clear that their goal is to unite the Muslim community and to abide by the laws set forth by Allah, found in the Quran, and all of that. And from the very beginning up until now, they always rejected the secular organizations and secular parties as contrary to what they are supposed to go for, which is an Islamic state and an Islamic community. So that's where they very much differ. And it is known in their name. It is Islamic Resistance Movement.
What are the Islamic motivations behind Hamas's actions that we've seen unfold in the last week or so?
So as stated in their covenant from the beginning, their goal is to abide by Islamic principles and aim for Islamic jihad, and specifically, they cite Quran verses such as that the Muslims and the Jews, or the Muslims and the disbelievers, are enemies, and that it is a duty and a prophecy and a promise for the Muslims by Allah to eventually defeat and get rid of the Jews. So the entire they present this entire idea that Jews are the eternal enemy, and a Jew is a Jew, regardless if there is a conflict or not.
For those that don't believe this and they just believe that what you're saying is
That's a problem. By the way, that's fact. That's fact. I'm preaching this Sabbath, and I'm also preaching this Sunday. Part of my message this Sabbath, and I'm gonna put it on this stream. By the way, I do have 3 other YouTube channels. By the way, for those of you who don't know, this channel is dedicated to social and political situation because of the demographic. But I do have a channel when I deal with spiritual, cultural, and spiritual. It's called Pastor James Reacts. And then I have a channel that deals with biblical and also apologetics. So this is where I do a lot of the discussions in the Bible, and I go into biblical verses and so on, much deeper than I do here. So go and link in the description below if you want to go to these channels for different purposes. So I'm letting you know, Luke and Live does something different. Pastor James Reacts does something different, and Contending for the Faith does something different. So yeah, so just so you know, I have a video coming up about that, and that's really part of my sermons as well. And I've done my research on the Islamic faith regarding how they feel about Jews, and not just Jews, but also Christians. All right, so they don't only hate Jews, but they also hate Christians. In their writings, even in the Qurans themselves, they deny Christianity and also deny the Jewish faith. And most of the persecutions they ever perpetrated against religious folks has been done against the Jews and Christians, never the other way around. I'm sure there might be one Christian who goes after an Islamic person. I'm sure there are a couple of Jews who lost their minds and go after an Islamic person, but it's not written in their teaching. It's not one of those things. Whereas for the people, the Islamic faith, they really hate the Jewish folks. It's actually in their doctrine, and they really hate Christianity. They have a problem with Jesus. So could that play a role as part of the indoctrination in which we are seeing a war today? Oh, I'm sure of it. You know, it's like I've said, it's not just political. Listen to the nature of this stuff here. It's pretty it's disturbing. Let's just put it that way.
is anti-Islamic propaganda or Islamophobia. What exactly are the goals of Hamas that are stated in their 1990 or their 1988 covenant?
So in the 1988 covenant, and this is actually very, very easily accessible. I mean, you can just type Hamas covenant or Hamas charter 1988, and you will find it on multiple sources. Some of them only summarize the articles. Others list the entire text, so you can have access to the entire text. You will see therein articles which contain Quran verses, articles which contain calls upon Allah and His Messenger and the entire Muslim community. And specifically in Article 7, you will find something that is very disturbing, but that people who understand Islam and who know Islam are familiar with. In Article 7 of the Hamas Charter from 1988, you will find a narration, a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, which Muslims around the world know of, which specifically says the hour will not come until you fight the Jews and you kill them, and even the trees and rocks will say, "Oh Muslims, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him."
Excuse me, is there any Jewish person here on the stream who want to come up and maybe in a comment, you want to come and explain what's going on here? And I'm willing to set aside a live stream for you to come and explain these texts. Somebody got to explain this. If this wasn't a Bible, I would have to explain to whoever is in doubt, is asking question, why in the world will the scripture have something like this, right? I would have to renounce that portion of scripture. I would have to completely leave the Christian faith if this was in the Bible, but it's not. This is in the Quran. This is in their charter. This is known, protected, never been renounced. Somebody please explain this. What does that mean?
Will say, "O Muslims, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him, except for one tree called the Gargat tree, which will not, because it is one of them." So it is a strange and very dark prophecy by Muhammad that is considered authentic in Islam and that Muslims around the world know, which
Telling me? Are you telling me?
aims at eradicating the Jews. And they state that it is their duty at the heart of the Holy Land.
No wonder why people take so much issues with religious folks. And he said, I'm not an atheist, but I sympathize with the atheists because we religious people, we be acting up, man. Like we be acting up. And I got a video, I got a study to share with you at the end, and I'm going to show you something that I'm not going to tell you. You need to wait. Keep watching. Listen, this is pathetic. So when people want nothing to do with religion, no wonder why. Because the stuff we do, the stuff we say in the name of our supposed God is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
To fight the Jews and to defeat them, to kill them, and to remove them entirely from there, to then turn Palestine into a great Arab Islamic state.
Now, this sure does seem to make a lot more sense of what we've been seeing in Israel recently, because it doesn't appear that they're actually just these freedom fighters that are fighting for freedom, given the nature of the atrocities and the crimes that they put forth. So, given that context there, has Hamas accepted Israel's offers for peace in the past?
No. And they also made it very clear, even in their current state and their current covenant, that they are against a peace process. In their charter from 2017 and also statements around the time before and after, they made it clear that they refuse to make peace with the Zionist occupation or Zionist entity. And they also officially denounce the UN agreements, the Oslo Accords, and all kinds of other agreements which prevent, as they call it, the fundamental right of the Palestinian Arabs to have a right to the entire region Palestine, which they describe from as from the Jordan Sea from the Jordan River to the sea, and from the northern boundaries to the southern boundaries. So they accept all of that as one Palestine, and they state that they want to go for the 1967 borders initially, but their ultimate goal is to take all of the land and to remove.
First of all, the land was not even yours in the first place. You moved in. The Jews were nice enough to make room for you. You've grown exponentially. Now you want to eradicate the Jews. Why? Is it because you're jealous? Is it because they're more successful? Is it because they've done a better job taking care of the land? What is the hatred here? Now, I've also heard some other things as well. One of the reasons that I've also done some research, one of the reasons they have an issue with the Jews and also Christians is because both Jews and Christians denied the supposed inspiration of Muhammad. Did you know when Muhammad began to write the Quran, he first thought that he was demon possessed? I can give you evidence for all of that. He like, that's not, I don't know what this is. This has got to be an evil spirit. That's what he thought at first, but eventually he managed to convince himself that he was not, and his writings were from God. Everybody is always from God, right? It's always from God. God told me. That's why I tell people all the time, even in Christianity, whenever somebody comes to me and say, God told me, somebody in the church, and a very nice lady, man, and this is not speaking anything negative about my people in my church, love people, but she came to me and said, the Lord told me you should not put your you should not put your children in public schools. The Lord told me last night as I was praying, your children should not go to public schools. They should go to Christian schools. And I looked at her and said, well, my children are in Christian schools. So the Lord told you nothing. So, I mean, she didn't realize that my kids were in Christian schools. She thought that my kids were in public schools. I don't know where she got that from. Maybe she saw a Facebook post or something, a picture. I don't know. Maybe I took our kids somewhere and they came to the conclusion. And then she came and told me the Lord told. Listen, when people tell you the Lord tell you, the Lord told me, tell them, where did the Lord say so? Show me in the Bible when God said it. Oh, I had a vision and a dream. Well, you need to compare the dream to the rest of scripture before you run with what the Lord told you. So we got these people coming, oh, I had a dream. I had a vision. The Lord visited me. And everything I say from this point forward is law. How do I know that? So we have an entire faith believing what somebody, how do you know? The devil can give dreams. The devil can supposedly give you thoughts and supposed inspiration. How do I know? We got to be careful with some of these prophets, man. We got to be careful with some of these prophets. And again, I'm not saying Islamic people are evil and bad. All I'm simply saying, if you have a teaching that is telling you it is okay to eradicate human beings' lives, friends, you don't have to preach to me anything else. Like, if you tell me your teaching says it's fine to kill human beings who disagree with you, me and you are done. The thief cometh not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I am come that they might have life, that they may have it more abundantly. If Jesus ever said it's okay to kill anybody, I will stop being a Christian today. But he never said that. He never did. Now, you can go in the Old Testament and trying to find old stories out of context and trying to apply them. Yeah, good try. This been debunked and explained long time ago. But when you go to the New Testament, you look at the life of Jesus, the examples that he set. This is why I could never become a Muslim. Before I became a Christian, I thought about becoming a Muslim. I said, man, I began to read and do some research and look at some behaviors and how they treat their women. I said, y'all crazy. I will not. Give me some Jesus. No Muhammad for me over here. No. This is ridiculous. This is radical. I want nothing to do with it. And I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I said no to the Islamic faith. I mean, I believe me. And listen, there's a lot of things that they do. They're some of their behaviors. They're strong on families. They're good on health. I love all that. I'm all for that. But at the heart of the principle, boy, there's a level of hatred. I'm sorry. Not this weather here. Let's get back to the video. Sorry for talking too much.
Remove Israel from existence. So therefore, they will never accept peace. And Israel was very well aware of that, which is why as soon as they were elected as the government back in 2006, Israel imposed a blockade and said, we are not going to accept this because this is a clear terrorist organization, which makes it abundantly clear that they want to eradicate us. And the only solution is for them to say, we will recognize Israel, we disavow all kinds of violence, and we will recognize peace processes. But they are not for that.
Okay, so Hamas has never had the goal of making peace with Israel, correct?
Yes, that's very clear.
Okay, so now, given that, there seems to be a loss of distinction between Hamas and Palestine all around the world, as a lot of these rallies are gathering around where people are saying where they're trying to flee or they're trying to free Palestine from the occupation of Israel. And so now, with so many people all around the world in support of what Hamas is doing, what do you think that they believe about the situation that's led them to believe that Hamas is worth supporting?
It's quite complicated, and I think we have to kind of distinguish between the Muslim side that supports them and the non-Muslim side. For example, in the left, we have in the West we have a lot of left-leaning, leftist, progressive people who think that it is the right thing to do to support the Palestinian freedom fighters, and without knowing much about the conflict, without knowing much about Hamas. When Hamas does something, they think this is just them fighting for their freedom, fighting against oppression and all of that. And this is all skewed also by this whole notion that was spread over the decades that the Palestinian Arabs are the native inhabitants of that region and that the Jewish Israelis are somehow settlers. which is a very long, very difficult topic that is, however, not really accurate. Jews did indeed, many of them did indeed migrate to that region under the Zionist movement at the end of the 19th century, but Jews always lived there. And the ones that are currently known as Palestinians also lived there, but they were never called Palestinians. Palestinian is only something that began to be used in reference to the Arab population there in the 20th century. So when people support the actions of Hamas, all they see is an oppressed population that is not allowed to have peace.
That's what I understand. There's been so many people in the past who's been oppressed by another group of people, right? We've seen that in history. We've seen that with the blacks. We've seen that with Israelites in Egypt. It happened with the Jews also during the Nazi era. You can look deeper. You will find even the Chinese at one point were oppressed by many in the West. So here's my thing. Because you were oppressed doesn't mean it's okay for you to react the way you did. Because the wrong was done to you does not justify your behavior to do wrong. Most people who are oppressed, who are truly oppressed, that's not how they behave. Most people who are truly oppressed, they don't take guns and they don't take machetes and go after youth at a party. That's not how they behave, though. I'm just saying, that's not how it happens. Does that mean there isn't a level of oppression of Palestinians? I believe there's been. But is it to the degree where which they did what they did? Is that the justification? No, it is the doctrine, friends. It is the doctrine. Now, I know somebody just got in their feelings in the chat room. Listen, you just told me I lost a friend. All right. Who is it? Dan got in his feelings and he said, you just lost this viewer. That's fine, Dan. Listen, that's okay. God will send somebody else, Dan. I love for you to stay. I love for you to stay. But if you don't like to hear something that doesn't sit well with you, that's just a weakness, Dan. That's a weakness that you need to deal with. I listen to channels who blast Christianity all the time. I listen to people who are saying things about my faith that all the time. I just have to go deeper. I say, is it true? I pray and I look for the facts. And if the person is inaccurate, I say, you're wrong. This is why you're wrong. Boom, 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 boom. And then we move on. That's called being an adult. But if you have a problem with people saying something you don't like and you want to have a fit, I'll say that's a weakness, man. That's a weakness you need to deal with. Anyway, let's move on.
Peace and freedom, and they think, okay, I am going to support that oppressed population because they're not familiar with the details, the intricacies of the entire conflict. However, there is just one thing to point out, which is often the Muslims who support Hamas in this, they are not very much interested in the whole oppression and oppressor part. Among the Muslims, the support for Hamas is rather religiously motivated because you are indoctrinated, as I was and as many others were, with the idea that the Jews are oppressors, they are evil, they are the eternal enemy, and the Palestinians are our Muslim brothers and we have to help them. So whether they are oppressed or the oppressors doesn't really matter in that case.
Okay, now do you think that Israel will ever be able to have peace with Hamas or eventually create a two-state solution?
Even if Israel wanted it, they will not. They don't want that. You know what the solution is? I'm gonna tell you what the solution is. Just in case you didn't figure it out, I know most of you already have. You guys are smart people. The solution is very simple. Are you ready for this? They have to reject the doctrine. Hamas, the people of Palestine, they have to look at the Quran, their charter, the statement of their wise men. They have to look at that and say, you know what? We don't believe that. This is incorrect, and that's a problem. But fine, that will be a great solution. But there is another problem, though. If they reject the teachings that Jews are bad, Christians are bad, Americans are bad, if they reject this teaching, that will render Muhammad as a false prophet. Ooh, we can't have that. We can't. So guess what, friends? We're gonna have a problem. we are in this for a long time. We are in this for the long haul. Somebody says, because they're not gonna deny that doctrine. You think they're gonna deny the doctrine? You think they're gonna call Muhammad a false prophet? Which I believe he was a false prophet. Sure. If you tell me you were demon possessed when you got your supposed inspiration, and then you turn around and say it came from God, I'm like, yeah, bro, whatever. And, whatever. And then you telling me in your teaching it's okay to cancel unalive people that you disagree with. I say, okay, whatever. And you tell me it's okay to lay with different women, even younger ones, underage ones, and that's fine. Sure. Yeah, whatever you say. Whatever you say. You're not gonna get a guy like me to join your religion. And anybody with common sense will say, but give me some Jesus. We don't want that guy. That's where I stand. And again, they're not going to deny it, friends. I'm just being honest here. I'm speaking facts here. And somebody can get offended if they want. Listen, it's in the doctrine. If you cannot attack the doctrine, you cannot fix the problem. Most of the stuff that's wrong in our culture is from the doctrine. Listen, ideas have consequences. Ideas have consequences. And if you cannot attack the doctrine, you don't have to attack the people. Ad hominem, I don't have to attack the people to attack an idea. But you know how hard it is to kill an idea? It's really hard to kill an idea. So the idea is the problem, not the people. So I'm going after the idea because that's what leads them to think the way they think, and that's what caused them to commit the crime that they commit. If you cannot call it out, we have a problem in our hands. There is time for rebuke, counsel, truth to be exposed. There's time for that. There's time for love and compassion and gentleness and meekness. But there's time for some harsh rebuke. And I think this might be a time, especially when human lives is at stake here. We should not tolerate any teachings of any group of people, any religious group of people that is putting other people's lives at risk. That is not something we should ever accept in our society. Just saying. Trying to make the world a better place.
You always want to believe that there is such a possibility, right? And you want to have peace. The issue is, I don't think that is possible with Hamas, and Israel very much has had the stance from the beginning that this is not possible with Hamas, and rightly so. If you follow the words of Hamas leaders throughout the decades, you will see that they very often said, we will remove every Jew and not leave a single one of them here. They declared that all Jews inside of the region Palestine should be afraid, and even those outside. Only a few years ago, a Hamas leader said, instructed Muslims in Palestine and around the world to go and kill Jews, and so on. So it is simply not possible to make peace with Hamas as long as Hamas changes their ways and makes that very clear and really makes steps toward demilitarizing or making peace and recognizing Israel. So if there is to be peace, the Palestinian population needs to get rid of Hamas and find a different solution. There are different parties among the Palestinians that are less radical, and with them, steps could be possible. For example, Israel was in a peace process for quite a long time until Hamas took over and messed it all up again. But with Hamas, there is simply no possibility for peace.
You go by apostate prophet, but you're not an actual prophet. But what do you think would be the next kind of stage? What do you think is going to happen from here with Hamas that we might see unfold over the next week, month, year, perhaps?
I don't want to be a very bad prophet here, but So right now, after the horrific scenes that the whole world has seen, where they basically invaded, went through the streets and started kidnapping, shooting, torturing, and otherwise violating civilians, where they killed over 1,000 Israeli people. Israel made it quite clear that this is going to be a war. So they officially declared war, that there will be a complete siege, and that this is only the beginning. So they are also getting ready to really go in and to destroy Hamas. Israel is capable of that. But the downside of all of this is that there will be a lot of deaths, including civilian deaths, and that will be used, and that will be used by the other side. I don't know. There is you could speculate endlessly, but I think um, Hamas will experience a very, very bad defeat, and for the sake of all people involved, including the Muslims or Arabs or Palestinians, I hope and think that Hamas will be destroyed, disarmed, and replaced with a better authority.
And we're certainly hoping and praying for a peaceful and a quick resolution. Now, AP, thanks for joining. And where can others find you and your work?
So I'm on YouTube, Apostate Prophet, and I'm also on Twitter. Excuse me, it's called X now, where you can also find me under the same handle, Apostate Prophet. That's pretty much the two places where I am active all the time.
Now, if you're interested in following this story, make sure you subscribe as well.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. A lot more could be said, guys. A lot more could be said. Oh my Lord, this is pathetic. Look, this is pathetic. It got to stop. It's got to stop. We're gonna skip that one. But guys, what is your thought concerning this matter? Can I give you a little tip? Can I give you a little Christian tip about when you're looking for a religious faith or even a person who claims to be a Christian? I'm gonna give you a tip. Are you ready for this? Very easy. Jesus speaks of what is known as the flesh and the spirit, right? It tells you that if you are led of the spirit, you are not under the law. Now, the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these. Now, listen: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulation, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envying, murders, drunkenness, revilings, such like these. And I tell you before, as I've also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. And I ask the question, what part you ain't going to heaven don't you understand if you live like this? You are not going, I don't care what your religion is when it comes to this. This is truth right here. Oh, I believe that. Listen, listen, did you hear what I said? If you live a life, if you have a faith, a religious teaching that promotes any of this, you're done. As a matter of fact, don't go to any religion that tells you it's okay to hate anybody. It's okay to practice witchcraft, idolatry, to be angry, strife, sedition, heresies. Any religion that's telling you that, I don't care if they're Christians or Muslims or Buddhists, I don't care. Wherever this is being promoted, run for your life. But I'm going to give you another religion. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such, there is no law. You know where I find that? I don't find it in a denomination, friends. I don't find it in a profession, friend. I find it in a person, and that person is Jesus. So you're going to look for any religion? You're going to look for anything where truth actually is? You want some love, peace, joy, meekness, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith? You want some of that? You need to go to Jesus. I did not say go to this particular church. I didn't say go to this denomination. And don't get me wrong, I'm part of a church, and that could be another discussion to have. The first person, the first place you need to go to is at the feet of Jesus. That's where true religion is. And apart from that, listen, man, I respect nothing else. I respect nothing else. And I'm all for certain religious doctrines. I'm all for that. Don't get me wrong. I preach it. But boy, stay away from everything else. Confusing, diabolical stuff. I do not respect it. Somebody can get mad if they want. Oh, you want to get mad? Oh my goodness, I can't believe you hurt my feelings. Oh, stop. Stop doing that.